And welcome to the 67th installment of the Terrorisk podcast with Dimitri.
Hello.
What up, everybody? What up? What is up, New York? What's up, Deep Divers? We got a whole lot to talk about, Deep Divers.
Is that what you call your fan base now?
Nah, I stole that from this fucking YouTube channel called Infinite Waters.
Okay. Is it diving?
No, it's one of those. Okay, so since since my last previously mentioned spiritual awakening, I realized like there's like a whole subsection of YouTube where it's like these people are these YouTubers are they mainly talk about like raising consciousness, hermeticism, like alchemy, and
oh yeah.
I don't even know what you call
32 hertz.
I don't even know what you call this scene. Like, I don't think there's a real label for it, which I'm going, like, because the minute I think you slap a label on it is when it starts, like, becoming bullshit, like New Age, you know, shit like that.
Hold on. What do you mean becoming?
What do you mean?
I mean, it starts becoming bullshit.
No, okay, so, I mean, like, when it starts becoming, like, a cultural movement, as opposed to just, like...
You mean it hits mainstream?
Is that what you call it? Just hitting mainstream, like cultural? When it hits the cultural mainstream?
Yeah, the zeitgeist.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's the zeitgeist. When it becomes like the zeitgeist, then I think that's when
people can refer to it. Then it's like, oh, now everyone can get in on it because someone.
Yo, but
New York Times wrote an article on this thing, and now everyone's like, oh my god. Now I know, I'm informed, ha ha ha.
Yeah, but even if that's the case, like I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing here. Like I don't think even if it did become mainstream, like I think that's only going to be a good. It's like saying like, oh, what happens if picking up your garbage becomes mainstream? I'm like, oh, all right, that's good.
Well, the thing about movements is, at least movements in the popular sense, is they tend to correlate with hype, which tends to correlate with signaling. Right? So, like, when it becomes mainstream, it's people start doing it because it's cool and trendy, not because they like it or because they get anything out of it. They just want to be seen as up and up.
Yeah, but there's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, like,
I'm not saying there is or isn't. I'm just saying the problem is it becomes not the thing.
Well, I think what the real problem is once something becomes mainstream, which is fine, things can become mainstream and be okay. It's when something becomes mainstream, then it becomes vulnerable to like exploitation and corruption and commodification.
Well, I'd say it's primarily vulnerable to dilution, right? This is like the gatekeeping is good argument, right? If you can keep the people out who don't actually practice the thing, you can, make sure the thing is actually practiced.
But doesn't a lot of that also kind of depend on what the actual thing being practiced is? For example, if we're talking about something like ideology or religion or something, or like fucking, like a genre of music becoming diluted or something, yeah, I could see where, that's like really troublesome for the thing itself because it begins and ends at a certain point, at a certain dimension of our existence. Whereas certain things, it's hard to really dilute it because it's not as accessible off the jump. Like,
well, that makes it more prone to dilution. It just depends on how. Like, the mainstream finds a way. I'll say that much.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Everything. Nothing's really exempt from that. I look at something like martial arts even, and then it's like, what did that turn into? That turned into, like, combat sports. That's been, like, heavily commodified and, like, commercialized.
Well, I mean, forget that. Many martial arts studios don't even teach you real martial arts. They just teach you, like, some vague exercise nonsense.
Well, again, like, I'll teach you... not teach, but I would say that's because, like... it's like, for example, if you're teaching martial arts to make a living, right? If you have your own school,
right?
And you want to stay true to something like your art form, what's going to happen is you're going to be imparting or imposing a really high standard.
Yes.
So here you are trying to make a living. So to make a living off it, you need as many students as possible. But if you're like imposing like a really high standard, then you're going to end up losing just as many students. So that's what happens.
Yeah, of course.
That all goes back to like commercialization, commodification. You decided to make a living off of this by turning it into a commodity. And if it's a commodity, then it has to be compromised if you're going to sell it. Because otherwise, like, when you're selling something, the customer is always right.
Well, yes and no. That's a tricky one. Like, commodification doesn't have to be bad as long as it, like, if you give a large number of people an experience, even if it's watered down to some extent, that could still be very valuable as long as it has the positive qualities of the experience.
But what if the very nature of the experience is like you only get positive things out of it if you put yourself through like rigorous negative?
So that's what I'm saying. Some things are not don't benefit from commodification.
Yeah. Well,
so then you run into problems where you get like the bullshit version of it.
But I'll say this much, like, even if it's something like MMA or something, like, if you put a lot into it, and even if it is commodified and you're just really learning how to like win fights in a competitive sporting match, like, you're still gonna be able to kick someone's fucking ass who's like completely.
Well, no, I think MMA is good. Like, I'm not opposed to MMA. I don't think MMA is bullshit. I'm talking like most karate that kids learned, like like Taekwondo when you're like 8.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to teach you that much.
Well, my problem
in terms of real fighting.
My main problem with MMA is like what they're teaching you stuff that intrinsically comes with a set of rules, because they're teaching you like.
Well, yeah, it's not real combat if that's what you mean.
Yeah, they're teaching you like basically like a sport, but it's a sport that happens to be really violent and really physically taxing, and like it really
so that's good.
Yeah. So my thing is, it's like, for example, like I mean, I don't like it when people compare something like MMA to like Kung Fu just by putting them in a ring, give them gloves and say, all right, fight it out. Let's see who's actually better. Because, like I look at like the way they're trained. I look at the way an MMA guy is trained. They're like, you're giving him gloves and you're telling him to basically score points or trying to knock the guy out.
Okay.
You're telling the guy, but you're not allowed to grab his dick, kick him in the dick, punch his throat, poke his eye. Meanwhile, you look at like any traditional martial art, and it's like mostly predicated on self-defense, meaning if you have to, like fight dirty, like kick him in the dick, poke him in the eye. So and it's like if you're going to compare something like that to MMA and you put them in, like, you give them gloves, it's like, what are you telling, like, you're telling one person to say, all right, this is your element. Meanwhile, you're telling the other person basically like fight with one hand behind your back. You're not allowed to do like 90% of what you're taught to do.
But here's the thing. I feel in many schools in like the present day, they're not teaching you to really actually like stab people's eyes out and kick their balls.
That depends on the school.
Like, most of them are just like, do a punch, do a kick.
Okay, so what we're talking about is a lens of, because there's a difference between like adult classes, right, and like youth classes. Like,
oh, I don't know that. Okay. I only took it as a kid. So.
Okay, so like I've done martial arts as a kid too, but I've also done it as an adult, and I could honestly say, like,
maybe that's why you're good at it. Maybe had that child training carry over.
Nah, I think more often than not, if it's like a McDojo, like, and they're teaching kids, what they really want to teach kids is just discipline.
That's fair. I don't hate that.
Listen to your parents and shit. I mean, also, but then you'll have one kid come into a karate school and say, I just want to be able to deal with bullies. And you don't have to teach the kid how to like break necks and fucking pop out eyeballs to like deal with bullies. You could just, that's like, you could just tell a kid, like, punch him in the nose, he'll bleed, he won't bother you ever again. Like.
Well, I will say the nice thing about kid fights is they don't get that brutal, right? I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, it's another thing, because kids get fucking scared. They're kids. It's like if a kid's threatened to get punched, he's going to get scared. If a kid actually gets punched in the face, he's going to get even more scared. Yeah. So it's like, they're kids. Unless they're like child soldiers from the Congo and,
I'm just saying, like, generally kids don't fight like to the death or like, to like really mess each other up.
Yeah, unless something's like been done terrible, like a terrible thing has been done to them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to commodification, right?
Right.
Commodification, we agree, isn't always bad, but it is the gateway to badness.
Again, I really think it depends on what's getting commodified and how. Like I would not throw that kind of blanket over that concept.
I mean, this started with what? Saying, like, talking about spirituality. We know spirituality has been commodified. Religion has been commodified. Culture has been commodified. Ideology has been commodified.
Yeah, no, some things should definitely not be commodified. But, like, products getting commodified, that's probably pretty good for 90% of the people.
I think if some things shouldn't be commodified, then if it wasn't supposed to be commodified, it wouldn't have been commodified, period. Like, can like, realistically, like, you bring up a good point. Like, is there anything that really can't be commodified that we can think of?
Can't?
Yeah, can't.
Well, do you mean like without losing the essence or like the effectivity of it?
More like where people, would still buy into it, seeking that particular experience, even regardless of whether or not it gives you the true experience. Like that's how I gauge the effectiveness of it.
Well, once you qualitatively change something, you're stuck in this like, okay, people are buying it, but is it really the thing? You know?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
like if you reduce like Christianity to like, you buy a Bible and you pay a monthly fee. Like, is that Christianity?
I guess that really depends on the person who's buying it. Like, are they getting the phenomenological experience?
No, they're not. I'm saying not at that point.
You don't think so?
If it's what I just described, like, no. I'm saying that'd be even worse than what we have in the modern times.
Possibly.
So, it's a question. Like I said, it comes down to gatekeeping versus accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much do you enforce the rigorous practice versus how much can you scale it to like a novice person?
Or how much you're willing to like compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like compromise usually comes in the name of accessibility.
But the reason behind it, from a teacher's point of view, it's because you got to eat, you got to make a living, and if you alienate too many students with standards that are too high, even if they're your standards that you set for yourself, it may not work. And that goes doubly true if you're actually good. If you're actually good, you're gonna have like way higher standards than the average novice, Like, so it's like they're gonna come in, you're gonna alienate. You're by nature, if you enforce your superior standard on the masses, by nature you're going to weed out most people. And if you're trying to make money off of this, that's not really a good strategy,
Well, it depends. Like, you can still leverage.
You spoke?
No, thanks. You can still leverage those skills as, a brand that could charge a premium, right? So, if you're like a sick fighter, you can just fight a bunch of random dojos and be like, haha, I'm better than you. Now people are going to want to go to your thing more. And then you could just be very exclusive and, train like Zuckerberg or something.
You can do that, but I think that's a really dangerous... I mean, all right, maybe it just goes against my philosophy as a martial artist. Like, I don't believe, like, the way to demonstrate value for your style of martial arts should be to go out and kick other people's asses.
Well, I agree. That's just, like, one way you could do it.
I mean, that's honestly why, like, one of the big reasons why tournaments are so popular among different martial art. That's why martial arts schools agree to come in and meet in competition. That's really what it's meant for. It's to flex like their superiority, so that other people watching could spectate and see which style is the best. So like, they're gonna eventually get more students, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how MMA took off.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's a valid strategy.
MMA took off in a completely different way. MMA took off from a purely promotional perspective, I think.
No, I think a big appeal was that, you could use any style. So then now you get to see, like, which style is actually more competitive.
You know where it came from, right?
Brazil?
Yeah. So in Brazil, they had this tradition called Vale Tudo. And Vale Tudo was this, like, quasi-street fight / tournament. It was basically IRL Street Fighter, where you had...
Sick.
Yeah, you had literally dudes brawling it out in supervised matches of people within the scene, and you had people from different schools within Brazil coming. Now, one of the big stories was you had this guy from Japan. He was a judo practitioner, but the thing was about this guy compared to other judo practitioners is he was really weak and he was really frail. So he wasn't able to like overpower you with strength and put you on your ass and like hit you with the earth as like traditional judo would have you do. Right. But like what he was good at was like he was so scrawny and small and wiry, like the minute you tried to like hit him, that's when he would get you. If you're that close, he would wrap around you, and suddenly like he would like wrap around your leg in a way that just brings you to the fucking ground, and suddenly you can't do anything. And that's where like jiu-jitsu and wrestling and stuff became so intertwined with this prototype version of like mixed martial arts. And it was a lot of it was headed by the Gracie family, because the Gracie the Gracie family was like the main disciples from that guy who came from Japan to Brazil.
Right.
And then once the Gracie family studied under his tutelage and like learned his teachings of jiu-jitsu, like the ground game, not just the takedown game, but the ground game. Once he started like doing that and he started kicking everyone's fucking asses, he started winning like every fight. And that's like, the real history. And then eventually like you had like certain amateur leagues that Gracie was like very involved in, come make its way to the West. Well, it's already was in the West. I mean, the Northwest, and like eventually it picked up off of like guys like like big sports promoters, like they were, and then eventually UFC was born. Also, like in other countries, this was already going on, like in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had like K1 and Pride. Yo, those fighting. If you think UFC is exciting, but like before UFC, when you look at like K1 and Pride in Asia, that shit was so fucked up and brutal.
I've never even heard of that. Okay.
It's crazy. It's basically the same shit as UFC. It's just it's old. It's older. That's it. So there's like less rules, less certain like regulations is done differently, maybe different times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh wait, what's your take on practicing versus non-practicing martial arts? If you know about that.
No, I don't know about that.
Okay, so there's like a theory where so all the martial arts that involve you like gouging someone's eyes out or kicking their balls.
Yeah.
Like you basically cannot practice that against the real opponent, right? Like you can't actually like try gouging someone's eyes out.
Okay, so that's the mystical part of say like martial arts. Even if you can't actually, like, let's say you get into one real altercation where you do that like once in a lifetime or twice in your life or whatever. Regardless of that, like even if you do manage to be at that level, like you're still practicing at a rate where this is where I think the magic comes into play, because when you're a martial artist, the only way to practice correctly is you got to have like an element of vivid imagination. Like what shadowboxing? Shadowboxing?
Yes.
That's a real thing, but that's only enabled by like fucking like that you can only do that with an actual.
Well, but that's what I'm talking about, kind of, because a sport like MMA where it's like all grappling and kicks and like you're allowed to strike, like most of its practitioners can literally just go all out and like fight for real.
Yeah. Use their full physical capability. Yeah.
And because it's not reliant on gouging someone's eyes out, like you could just do it.
Okay, but here's the thing, like
whereas someone who has that can't.
To overpower a guy physically like that with your punches and your kicks and shit and whatever, you know what that takes? That takes physical superiority. That takes physical dominance. That takes
gotta be a physical beast.
That takes superior conditioning. But when it comes to like these deadly lethal arts, right? Who do you think the masters are mainly passing them down as? You think they're young, fit ass? No, they're like old real deadly lethal martial arts like that were solely designed so the weaker guy could beat the older guy.
Yeah.
I mean, what do we beat the bigger guy? What are we talking about? We're talking about arts that specifically target the weakest parts of your body, so it doesn't take that much effort to jam my thumb in your soft little eye hole, or your soft little nuts. I'll fucking put a fist through that. So it's really
but you don't practice it. That's the problem.
I mean, how much do they really have to practice? Like, just like crushing someone's nuts.
I don't know.
I mean, I could see why I'd have to.
But it's like a difference. You could practice the motion, but like when it comes to like go fucking do it, like in real life against like an actual assailant, you don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, this is why the highest levels are like military guys. I mean, they may not be actually like punching a guy in the dick, but they're the closest to it when they're training. They're like close quarter shit, right?
Yeah. Also, I remember my dad was telling me like all the eye gouging stuff. He says that's like female martial arts.
But females make the deadliest martial arts, like even throughout history.
Well, yeah, but he was saying like that's usually it's because they're typically weaker.
Yeah.
That they specifically practice in that.
But are they really weaker if they're the ones standing it in the end?
Well, no, a guy could do it too. Like my dad learned that stuff.
I'm saying
too.
like what your dad is saying is right, but he's also self-defeating in his argument, because like you're only doing that because you're weaker, and that's the only way for you to win. But if you win, you're stronger. Period.
Well, so I was thinking about this, right?
Yeah.
And the thing,
you use your brain power to overcome your physical to win a battle. That's just as valid.
The thing those arts miss is you can't have a non-destructive resolution. Right? Like, if you're doing that sort of thing, you're just gonna fuck the guy up.
Yes.
Whereas
100%.
if you're practicing quote-unquote male martial arts, you can subdue them without inherently, destroying them.
Okay. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding. Actually, it's not a misunderstanding. Here, I just have my own take on that, because, like, the Japanese, like, go into that philosophy extensively. There's this concept called Aiki, right? It's
Aikido, yeah.
Yeah, and within that, there's this one concept called, there's two different swords within your martial training. You're going to be given two things, right? You're going to be given as a practitioner, Katsujinken, which is the life-taking sword, life-giving sword, and Satsujinken, which is the life-taking sword.
Okay.
So the idea is, you could look at them as separate things, but in fact they're one and the same. And here's how that could play out in real life. Like there's so many stories where, like, you know, during peacetime you had a lot of stupid fucking duels over pride to the death, I might add. So you would have like cases where like one swordsman would take out a sword and then another swordsman would take out a sword, right? And then just from like the way they express, like, you know, the way their posture, just from what they're wearing, their clothes, the way they look at them, the way the way their hair is kept, everything, like how many lines they have on their face, how many scars they have on their body, like all that betrays the information before, like so much information before the fight even begins.
Okay.
Now the life-taking sword is the obvious one. I'm so good at my swordsmanship, I could kill whoever steps to me. I could fuck people up, I could kill them, and it's a wrap. That's how good I am. But then it's like, all right, now what about the life-giving sword? How does that come into play? Well, the idea is, if you are so good at killing, if you're so good at using your sword, you should be good enough to spare their life instead of taking it.
Also
so like
true.
Instead of like chopping your head off, I'm just gonna chop at your fucking hand. And maybe you'll lose a finger, but at least that'll end the fucking fight. You know, like.
Yep, that's a good point.
So that's my take on it. Like, yes, you know, like you could look at it as like, oh, you know, only lethal techniques take lives and only non-lethal techniques save lives.
Well, no, I'm not saying that either. Obviously, someone who could do techniques that subdue can probably also do like lethal techniques. I'm just saying, if you only study like eye gouging and dick punching, like, you can't use non-lethal techniques.
I don't think it's about just studying eye gouging or dick punching. I think it's the whole curriculum. First of all,
I'm being
to me, like those arts, like usually those techniques come from a place where it's like, I'm going to still condition my body to as strong as I get it, but I'm not ever going to be like fucking Brock Lesnar. I'm not ever going to be a fucking like 6'7", like muscular ass Nordic built fucking barrel chested dude. It's like, no, some of us are fucking smaller, some of us are frail, some of us are older, you know, some of us are elderly. So we still need systems of fighting that could like solve that problem. That's the problem.
Well, I agree. That's why it's good. I'm not disparaging it. I'm just saying that's like the missing capability, kind of.
I don't think
an old guy like will probably not subdue someone who's
if you're that good, I think if you're that good with lethal arts, it's if I could reach your eye fast enough with my thumb, then I could probably just like slap your fucking throat, and then you like and then you just like knock him out. It's really because
that's kind of a good point.
To me, good martial arts, it was never about like who's strongest and who's fastest. You know what it's really about? Who's the most efficient? Who wastes the? This is how older guys can beat younger guys. This is how women could beat men.
Sure.
It's never about who's stronger or who's faster. It's always about who's more efficient, who wastes less movements to get from here to here. Like some people like go like this and swing wide. That's like so much time wasted. It may seem like fractions of a second, but it counts. Whereas one person just does a straight punch. You know, it's like, it's really about efficiency. That's really what wins in the end. That's if you look at war, like in war, it's the side that makes the most like unnecessary movements that usually loses. Because it's like, here's what people have to understand about war. It's like, imagine, you know how like when you play a fighting game, there's your health bars, and every time you get hit, you lose a health bar. Realistically, what fighting a battle is like, it's like, imagine, you know, just like a fighting game where you both have health bars, but both are constantly going down. It's like a state of combat, a state of fighting. It can't be sustained for a long time. It's just impossible.
Well, yeah, that's why like 3 minutes in the ring versus 2 minutes versus 6 minutes.
I say any real fight lasts like 10 seconds, like usually on average.
That's
you know?
what my dad said, actually. He was like, if you fight for real, like to
10
the
seconds.
death, like to hurt each other, it's like one move, like 2 moves.
Yes, that's
like you either got their eye or they got your eye.
Exactly.
Like,
I'm always taught like, usually, I mean, it's not always the case. 100% there's going to be exceptions to this, but it's usually whoever gets the first hit, you know, wins. That's why, you know, when people, if anyone were to ask me, it's like, how would you go about winning a fight? It's like, honestly, I would fight dirty. I would fight as fucking dirty as possible. First of all, I don't go and look for clean fights. I don't go and look for any fights. So if I'm in a fight, then I'm in a situation I don't want to be in. And if I don't want to be in that situation of violence, I'm going to do everything within my power to end it. I don't care how dirty, I don't care how pussy it is. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to end it as soon as possible, hopefully with minimal damage, ideally. But if I can't, my only goal is to end it. So I look at this scenario like, you know, let's say you're a commander of a squad, right? And you have this option to engage honestly in a fair fight, you know, with the enemy, you know, that you see come across, or you have the option to get them while they're fucking sleeping and slit their throats. What would you rather do?
I mean, if you value your troops, you're
Exactly.
obviously going to do
It's your
the latter.
responsibility as a leader to literally make that decision, or not even a leader of other men, but yourself, your own life. It's your if you have kids and a wife, like, you're gonna waste time on pride. You're gonna waste your life on respect and fighting honor. No, you're going to me, it's really like true warfare is about, like, it's not even about fighting fair, applying ego. It's like, to me, it's just as simple as, like, the enemy. It's like, I look at, like, how a sculptor views a slab of marble. To me, the enemy combatant is just the excess marble that you have to chip away to see your beautified reality. To me, a beautified reality is where I get to walk home tonight, like, unharmed, and this guy just happens to be standing in the way of that. So I gotta, as an artist, to realize my beautified reality, I gotta chip away the fucking excess marble. Like, that's
interesting.
That's why, that's honestly, I think, the proper way to look at war as an art form. Is to look at, like, your enemy combatant not as this, like, demon or ideological opposite or just morally repugnant thing that you have to wipe out. To me, it's just, you have your vision of reality, I have my vision of reality, and our existence is contending with each other's beautified versions of reality. So let's do this. Let's do our art. Let's make art. Like, that to me is how, like, I don't know, like, people who win wars generally think like that.
I don't. I have no idea.
I only know this because I've been doing a lot of reading on the subject. I've been doing a lot of
That's
like.
fair. It's not my wheelhouse per se.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like. It's not so much just like the idea of war that I don't really like it at all. What I really like is the history and how much, and it's not good, but it's interesting and fascinating to me how much of our history and culture was actually built up off of principles that you could find in war throughout time memorial.
Yeah.
I think I said that right. But anyway, yeah, like immemorial. Immemorial, yeah, time immemorial.
Actually, don't quote me on that.
I don't know, but what I do know is that war is a huge part of human nature, and that's the reason why I go out of my way to learn things about, like, war, because I think, like, it's so tied to the human experience, regardless of whether you want to admit it or not. And it's not just war that I'm interested in. I'm also interested in art. I'm interested in food.
Sure.
I'm interested in architecture, because that's what we live in. I'm interested in everything that, like, we actively engage with on a day-to-day basis, which is all this shit that I just mentioned. Like.
Well, that reminds me. What do you think of? Okay, have you noticed that most men just know things about war? They're like guys just always find, like, war fascinating.
Well, do you know why?
Well, I have some idea, but I'm saying, do you even notice this pattern?
Yeah, I can tell you why that is.
Women
because,
just
like,
don't have this.
Because only men know what it's like to literally fear for their well-being and be scared because they're not physically superior to another person. Whereas women don't have to deal with that, really.
I mean, don't they have to deal with that all the time to some degree?
No, because for
they're
them,
always weaker.
No,
than
because for them it's already for them it's already implied. For them there isn't even a chance. So they're already kind of like fit into this. So they don't. So it's like no point in even really worrying about it unless it actually happens. For guys though, it's like it's you have an opportunity to not have to feel that way. But the only way for you to get that is to actually, like, do what you have to do. Like,
maybe, I don't know. But I'm saying, like, even from a young age, I feel.
And also the difference
guys
between women and guys is, like, guys protect women. Ultimately,
sure.
Guys don't really
supposedly.
Like, guys can't rely on guys like that, to the same degree.
Unless they're your boys.
Unless they're your boys, exactly. Which is why, like, horizontal honor is so important among men, especially.
Right.
Like, and what do you think? What do you suppose that's built on? What do you think really builds, like, horizontal camaraderie between men? I could tell you my
shared
thoughts.
Difficult experiences.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
That's, like,
what
everyone says, though.
But it's not. I don't
like
even.
a unique thought.
And you know what? I don't even think that's just men. I think that's people in general. I think anyone who shares, like, hardships together and, like, where they're put in situations where they have to watch each other's backs.
Yeah, that's how you build trust, because Yeah.
I think if I ever had to make people get along, that's the ultimate way to do it. If I had the authority, I would figure out a way to manipulate them into a situation where they're both, like, in vague danger or some sort, and they have to, like, work together. I mean, sure, they'll hate me for it,
well,
but
no, hold on. That assumes they actually work together.
What do you mean?
Like, they could be like giant pussies.
Yeah, but you could be forced to just work together.
Well, no, you ever seen Flight of the Conchords?
No.
Okay, so there's, like, an episode where well, do you know what Flight of the Conchords is about?
No.
Okay, so it's basically these two, like, musicians from New Zealand who moved to New York, and they're, like, not necessarily good at music, but they try their best.
Okay.
And there's one episode where they both get robbed, and one of them just runs away and leaves the other guy with the robbers.
Okay, but they're not actually. See, that doesn't count because one of them had the choice to run away. If it's not the right situation,
No, I'm just saying though, and then like basically the guy who ended up with the robbers, like all three of them end up in jail. He like befriends the robbers, and he's like super pissed at the other guy for running away.
Yeah.
And then he's
the
like,
robber's
fuck.
like, you have a really shitty friend.
Yeah, it's literally like that. It's like,
yeah.
damn, that's fucked up. He like straight ditched you.
No, but I've had that happen to me before.
That's a really funny show.
Like, I've been with a group of friends, and then we were like about to get like robbed, and one of my friends like literally jetted on the whole like group of us, and it's all good though. Like, I forgave him.
You were like, you like forgave that?
Yeah, I did.
Damn, really?
Cause like, I mean, no one got hurt, so it's
No,
like,
look, I don't know, but like, what if you did get hurt?
no one got hurt though.
But what if you did? Would you have been like, yo,
Well,
fuck you now?
Well, if I got hurt and he stayed, then he would have gotten hurt too, then wouldn't he?
Well,
Why would I celebrate that?
Well, in theory, you could minimize the chances. Like, there's the possibility that like the three of you.
I already knew there was no chance of like overpowering the people who were robbing us. Like, I already knew that.
All right.
If anything, like
So
maybe.
then why didn't you all run?
Exactly. That's how I looked at it. That's why I'm not bothered by it. I was like, if anything, I should have done the same exact thing.
Well, why didn't you?
I don't know. It's because like the other people I was with stopped, so I was like, all right.
Yeah, so they're like fight, flight, freeze. They picked freeze.
Yeah, and I was like, I froze with them because I was like, if they're freezing, yeah, dude, I openly admit that fault, but it's like,
No, that happens.
Yeah,
Sometimes that is the best move.
yeah, dude, I reflected on like all that shit, and it's like, because those are pivotal moments in your psyche that you ultimately like have to contend with sooner or later.
True.
Which, you know, like, and like what I was like glad to figure out was that I've been okay with it. You know, like there hasn't been a single one of those like shitty events where it really destroyed me. Like, I was able to move on from every single one of them. You know, I'm like,
I mean, that's survivorship bias, but okay.
What do you mean?
You know, because if it did destroy you, wouldn't be here.
No, destroy me emotionally.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
wouldn't
like,
be here talking about it.
What do you mean?
If you like got fully like destroyed emotionally, like you'd
Okay,
just be fucked
maybe
up.
destroyed is hyperbole. I should say like really like.
No, but some people do get like really fucked up by it, like
think
trauma
so?
shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Like, you know, like a memory they just can't like.
Yeah, now they like hate themselves or the world or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, if you know, a lot of people end up in those scenarios.
Yeah.
And it's
for sure.
unfortunate. That's
Yeah.
why you got to learn to fight or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You tell him. You tell me.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I just think some people are like more sheltered than they give credit for, and that's, you know, like, honestly,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, this might not be fair to say for a lot of people, but I think one person's trauma is somewhere else in the world is another person's regular ass day. You know, like, you know, you got like one kid getting traumatized by getting screamed at their parents every day. Meanwhile, like halfway across the world, there's people that worry about getting bombed every day. Like,
Yeah. Well, but okay, so trauma is actually a really specific mechanism. I read a book on this
yeah,
called The Body Keeps Score.
yeah.
Ha ha ha. Fun fact about The Body Keeps Score. It's a New York Times bestseller, and a lot of people read it. As far as I know, they did not understand what it says.
Oh, okay. That's
Which is
shame.
really the funniest shit.
It's a shame.
No, but like it's very specific in its description of the mechanism. But it basically goes like this. When you encounter a dangerous situation, you have your fight, flight, or freeze response, right? And then sometimes, like, you try to activate it, but the situation is such that you're stuck. Like, let's say you're like in a car crash and like you cannot escape. So you you try your best to escape and you're just fucked. Like, you're done. Game
Yeah.
over. Like,
Okay.
you cannot physically do this, right? Eventually, you might get rescued, but due to how the situation plays out, your body does not get the message that it's safe now. So it's perpetually stuck in fight or flight mode.
Oh, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It kind of does when you say it, right?
It's a basic survival instinct, pretty much.
No, but I'm saying, like, you never got the, like, like, you're out of the car crash. It's like you're like internally perpetually stuck in the car crash.
Okay, let me put it this way. Let's think of like really old ancient humans, right?
Yeah.
like when they lived in a completely different environment where they were surrounded by shit that was trying to kill you constantly.
Yes.
How do you think they felt emotionally? You think they felt happy? You think they felt content? You think they felt bliss all the time? No, they were in a constant state of paranoia, anxiety, and nervousness.
No, I
basically
disagree.
post traumatic stress. Like that's what they were in a constant state of. But I mean, it's not to say it was debilitating for them. No, they adapted. They survived.
I don't think that's entirely true.
What do you mean?
No, because...
What do you mean that's not true? They're humans. They feel emotions.
Yeah, but I'm saying the specific mechanism of getting stuck is different from
what I'm
feeling
saying,
fight or flight.
First of all, those specific emotions in us, I just want to ask, where do you think they come from? Where do you think our fear comes from? Where do you think our the purpose, are those emotions aren't purely evil. They exist in us for a reason.
No.
We needed these emotions like fear and anxiety and stress and like whatever, all that shit. We needed that because at one point, we as a species, we were living in way harsher environments where it necessitated the need for post-traumatic stress disorder that we call it.
No. You're conflating fight or flight with getting stuck in it. Like ancient people needed fight or flight, as we still technically do, right? But like
to a much lesser degree, yeah.
Nowadays, yeah. But I'm saying to the extent that they needed it, like they could also get out of it. Right, so like you're under a tiger attack, you fight off the tiger.
Yeah, and how do you
now you're cool.
But then I'm pretty sure that caveman's gonna sleep for the rest of his fucking life thinking about that fucking tiger attack, and it's okay because it's natural because another tiger might fucking attack him. That's true.
But look, I'm not saying they didn't get PTSD. I mean,
they should. Like if I got attacked by a tiger and I had to kill him off barely at the scrape of my, I survived barely off of a thread. Yeah, I would hope I got PTSD because I would never want that to happen fucking again. Like,
well, I
wouldn't let my guard down.
Okay, so this is my own conjecture here, but the way I interpret it, right, is if you're constantly dealing with like dangerous life or death situations, right, your system to turning on the fight or flight will probably be pretty well tuned, right? So like it'll activate appropriately and it'll deactivate appropriately.
So the problem is that people aren't getting enough of that stimulus at the right moments in their development to be able to manage it. Instead, it's coming at them after they've like been through a state where they haven't been able to fully develop that part of their brain until it comes all at once at the age of fucking 27, and then they're like, "Oh no, how do I deal with this? What the fuck is going on? My life is falling apart."
It's half that. Well, no, you could get it at like age 2 or 5, right? If you're just in that situation. And you never get out.
Also, like, look at people that live in, like, less developed, like, third world countries and shit.
Well, okay, so my theory, and I think the book's theory too, though I haven't finished it, so I don't actually know what the guy's solution is.
Right.
But there are, like, spiritual mechanisms that kind of get you out of that mode.
100%.
And, like, get your body to be like, hey, it's safe now.
Yeah.
Supposedly. I don't fully know because I didn't read it. But that's what it seems like. Like, if you believe that your body is stuck in fight or flight, you should be able to relax it somehow.
Well, it's really about raising your consciousness past base survival instinct, It's like, first of all, like, yes, you're in your basic survival mode. You're in your lower bottom 3 chakras, but however the fuck you want to put it. You're in your most densest state of matter at that point because you're trying all your focus, all your attention, all your love is going towards keeping your dense material form alive and intact, which is going to require your state of consciousness to be specifically in this like very slow frequency of light, of vibration, which is what we get solid matter in this three-dimensional world. And that's where all the danger is, That's what's threatening our bodies, our physical forms, right? So if we're in a state where that's threatened, then yeah, our focus is going to drop in consciousness. So if you want to like get out of that state, the only way to get out of this survival mode is to elevate your consciousness past, like just the perspective beyond your material form. You could call it your soul, your spirit, your whatever,
Well, no, as far as I know, that's not actually related.
But that's how
you could do it.
But that's how people do
helps,
it. That's how people do it. Like
no,
throughout history, like this is recorded throughout, like I don't know, like since like ancient Buddhist whatever, like
it's
practices.
Not it is. You're like close, but not exactly.
What do you mean? What are you, an expert on fucking Buddhism? This is what I just read. I'm not saying I'm not like.
I don't think either of us are experts on Buddhism. Let's be honest. But like.
Oh, you're talking about your book because like I didn't read that book.
No, I know. I'm just saying like. As far as I know, the mechanism to get out of it is like very low level. but it does use high level like stuff. So when I say spirituality, it's not like about finding higher consciousness.
What do you think spirituality is, though?
Well, let me finish this thought, and then we could get into that.
All right.
Because it's like, it's something you feel like on a very basic level that gets you out of it. Even if you use like high consciousness to access it, it ultimately reaches like very basic stuff.
But the thing is, like
you just like feel loved or like feel like at peace.
All right, so I should ask you, what's your take on high consciousness? Like, what do you think the nature of it actually is? Do you think it's purely mental, or like you think it's cerebral?
I wouldn't even know if I would put it in those terms.
What if I told you that it was like, how would you feel about the idea that it's mostly, it starts on the basis level, or the most pivotal level for you to like actually control it? It's emotional. It's all emotions.
It feels like it's related to emotions, yeah.
What if it's like it's hanging on emotion? I'm not saying that's true for everyone. Just saying in our case, like what if that's just the most true for you right now, where the main pivotal thing is like it starts emotionally to raise consciousness. You know, like.
Well, I mean, I think it's like, you know, you receive information, you process it mentally, you feel a certain way emotionally, and then that triggers. Like,
do you think so?
A spiritual.
That's your order, right? You think
I don't know.
You think it's
I don't know. I'm just going off the top of my head.
But you feel right now, or you're saying that it starts with your thoughts, then you emotionally.
Well, it starts with your senses.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, it starts with your senses.
Because you receive the spiritual information.
Yeah, well, you see the information of your immediate surroundings. Yeah.
Oh, it could be immediate surroundings. It could be like a concept. It could be like.
Oh yeah, like an idea that infiltrates your perception. Yeah.
It could be like, you know, imagery. It could be like a spectacle. It could be like
an
some
event,
like LSD shit. Yeah, it could be a miracle type shit.
Yeah. Okay. So really what you want to think about is like how you can actively control that flow. Like how you can, instead of just like, like that emotional part where you say senses, right? Sensory stimulus, and emotional response. What if instead of like, what if you could actively control some part of this equation where, because if it starts with sensory stimulus, emotional response, then thought, then physical response, and then future actions.
Well, no, I think it's
and the future actions,
which that might be the order.
And then future actions which ripple out to, you know, affecting your actual environment.
Sure.
What if you could actually willfully change that, affect that chain, manipulate it to a degree where the end result is something that you actually want, and not just something that, you know, you have no control over?
Well,
that's the idea. That's the whole.
Okay, now you're going into like the free will determinism argument.
I think that's even like so far removed from that. Like it's not even.
No, because you're saying instead of getting what you get what you actually want. Right, that would imply the concept of free will.
All right, I think when I say like, if you put it like that, like it's so easy to say, like it's so easy for people to trick themselves into saying like this is what I want, when meanwhile that's not what they want at all. They may want the entirely opposite thing.
Sure.
So the only way for you, what you said to hold true is you have to be developed enough psychically or psychologically to at least like be like truly honest with what you want. You know, I think most people are not honest with what they actually want. Otherwise they wouldn't realize why their life is the way they is.
Well, no, see, then you, like I said, then you run into the determinism issue, because what you really want, I don't think that's a thing. You could say what makes you happy for real.
No.
But what you want is not necessarily what makes you happy.
It's what you're actually, whether indirectly or directly, what you're actively focusing your energy, your attention.
Yeah.
What that is what you're actually wanting, what you're actually manifesting. So, for example, you could be focusing entirely on fighting the power to make a better place, to make a better world, to fight social injustice. But if you really like dissect that and you simplify it to that basic element, what are you really focusing on when you take away all the material fucking layers of bullshit narratives?
Could be a number of things.
You want to fight. You want to be a rebel. You're looking for a fight. And guess what?
That's not inherently true.
Yes, it is.
No. It really depends on like what you're trying to achieve.
Put it this way, you know how you could say this, like no matter what cause you're fighting for, look at like across all the whole spectrum. What's the one thing they have in common? They're all looking for a fight. That's the whole point. They're looking for an ideological fight. They have an intellectual axe to grind.
I don't agree with that necessarily because
I mean, I'm not saying they're all not justified. Some of them are very much so justified, and some of them are completely correct in their causes.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, do you believe justice is real? Like, do you believe
of course.
like there's like fairness?
Well, no, I believe in like an actual highest ideal of mankind. I believe in the highest value. I think love is the highest ideal.
Sure. So I'm saying, like, you know, if you're like living in a legitimately unjust system, would you not inherently want to fight that?
I don't. Well, at this point, I'm not thinking in terms of just or unjust. Like, I don't know if I'm.
But that's kind of what you're. Because you're making it sound like abstract, like they're
looking
for a fight, regardless.
Because
but
like
it's not
again,
that someone has to look for a fight.
No, but I'm saying
system.
I'm saying it in the framework where it's like I think people are have a lot more control than they think, to the point where things like just and unjust are irrelevant. I think it's to a point where like I'm sorry, like I don't believe in some cosmic retribution for evil acts. I don't think
I agree with that.
I don't believe in a hell, so I don't really believe in morality in an objective sense. I believe in doing good things because I want to do good things, but I honestly don't believe.
Well, no, if you believe in doing good things, you have to believe in morality to some level, because otherwise, how would you define what a good thing is?
I believe in immorality, but I'm saying it's only bad because I actively dislike those things. Whereas another person could be totally into control. They could be totally into tyranny. They could be totally into dictatorships. They could be totally into wanting to be on the winning side and having control. You know, I think that to me is evil. It's not even about good and evil. It's really there's two basic concepts that are at odds to me. It's service to self and service to all. And I choose service to all because I feel connected with all, and therefore service to all is ultimately service to self. Whereas there's other people who just like would rather manipulate all and just in service of their self, their ego, their whatever, you know, just to try to prolong their existence, their consciousness, their single incarnation. Whereas me, I feel a universal connectedness. So to me, helping other people is one and the same as helping myself. Now, what people disagree on is how I'm helping other people, you know,
you may not, in fact, be helping them.
Exactly, but my intention, no matter what, is I'm still living my truth. And I could also say, furthermore, I don't have any intention on interfering with other people's paths. I truly believe we are all on our own path, and I don't think it's my responsibility or my job to literally go out there and tell people what to do. What I can do is say whatever the fuck I want, so I do. It's not like I ever say anything in the framing of like, this is what you should do, and if you don't do it, then I'll punish you. No, I'm saying do whatever the fuck you want, but I'm gonna call you fucking dumb if I see you doing something fucking dumb, you know, like
right. And nor should they necessarily care if you think that.
Exactly, you know. So that's why I'm like totally okay with where I'm at. I'm like,
I was gonna say the problem with your statement, though, not inherently your statement, but I'm saying like there's a lot of people who will claim to be doing something in the service of others when it's really self-serving.
First of all, I never said I'm doing service, saying I'm doing service to others. I'm just saying that to me is the correct side. I'm acknowledging two sides: service to all, service to self. And by service to all, I don't just mean service to other people. I mean service to your environment, service to animals, service to like people that you have responsibility for, service to people you hate, service to people that rely on you. Basically, like service to all, as in service to your reality, as in caring about your existence. Because it's not just like caring about a singular person or a singular group of people. No, they're all a part of my reality, so I have to care for the whole reality holistically.
Right, but
and the only way I'm going to do that is not to impose my idea of right and wrong. I have to maintain a balance. That's what it is.
Yeah, but I'm saying a lot of people can say that exact same thing, but just be really disingenuous about it.
Well, I mean, how am I being like? How can anyone really be genuine about it? Is really to just.
Well, I don't know.
It's really to just.
The interesting question.
To me, it's just live the life that you fucking want, and the only thing that you're in control of there is what you want. You're not in control of anything past that. Like hold on. I
don't even think you're in control of that.
I do. I think you could. I think you're in control of what you want.
Well, okay, so like I said, this goes back to the determinism versus free will thing, because like you assume there is a you that is somehow okay. Let me step back a little.
Okay.
Okay. What do you think of free will in general?
Free will, like
the concept. Like, what do you think it means?
The concept of free will. Okay, so I look at it like this. Like, I think one of the ways, in regards to free will that we've been programmed negatively is like, you know, I'll notice, like, it was interesting. There was a person who recently asked me, they were like, is there anything you think you can't do? And then I was like, honestly, I think that's like the wrong question to ask. And they were like, how do you figure? And I told them, I was like, I think, like, you know, you should really start with, is there anything you wouldn't want to do? And then I told him, and then I could think of plenty of things I wouldn't want to do. And I think I think want has to come before can't or could, because, like,
Really?
put it this way, you can't do anything at all unless you want to do it first. Period. No matter what it is, want will always have to come before
Yeah, you need a
could.
will.
Ought should come before could, you know, or would should come before could.
Right.
It always does. And I think that's what people are, this is what I'm really trying to say. It's not about like this hardline question of do you believe in free will or not. I think it's just really perspective. I think in a certain perspective, then yeah, there's never going to be such a thing as free will. Whereas in another perspective, and I think both are true. I think both perspectives can be true at the same time. I think there can be a superposition of reality where it's like, yes, you do have, you know, you don't have free will, you know, because I do believe in like a cosmic order of like direction. But at the same time, I think in like, you know, from the confines of your experience, which is just as valid, which doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, mutually exclusive with like an objective, like grand scheme of things. I think maybe part of the bigger picture is for you to make your own decisions. You know, it's like maybe the part of the bigger picture is for you to draw your own smaller picture. You know, like.
Well, I mean, I think it's beneficial for everyone to act as if free will exists. So I'll agree with you there.
Because, like, again, like, and I still don't think I'm wrong there, where it's like, regardless, like, I still think it's impossible to do anything unless you want to do it first. You can't do anything unless you want to do it first.
But to me, it's not the question of want, because it's a question of control, right? Because to me, the fundamental premise of free will is that for you to want something in a way that is truly yours, you would have to, like a soul or something, would have to exist in a metaphysical reality that's not bound by determinism.
So I do believe in that. I do believe in the metaphysical reality. Yeah. I do believe in a source that in a higher dimension that, you know, our souls are just like small little raindrops of a vast ocean, just thrust and focused into these like neat bodies for us to experience this three-dimensional world, to learn, and then once we die we return. Some Christians could call it going to heaven, fucking, you know, whatever. Other religions call it whatever they want. I just think it's you know, I just think in terms of energy, you know, our souls are just like specific, you know.
Okay, so the specific claim I'm asking if you're making is, do you think our conscious and will are fully subject to physical reality, or do you think they operate in a higher reality where they're not inherently bound by determinism of like the world they're in?
Both.
Well, that's not.
I think it's both at the same time.
Okay. I mean, obviously to some degree, but I'm saying, you think there's an element of a higher like level where we can go beyond just our pure physical experiences?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
But I don't think it's
not obvious. I don't
think it's going to be this. I don't think it's going to be quite the same as if it's like you, as you are now, Dimitri, just like, you know, like shooting off into the cosmos in a corporeal form as you are.
No, I agree.
I think it's like, put it this way.
But I'm saying just having the capability at all is like a very game-changing concept.
Well, to me, it's like because like I feel like I can identify with the experience of separating from like, you know, like. Just separating from like bullshit, only because the only thing that could say like, for example, it's worthwhile for me to think this way is because if I'm in a negative situation and like I'm fully locked into my third dimensional material form and like that's who I specifically identify as, and shit's happening and shit's like stressing me out, I think I've only benefited from just like literally just like pushing and dissociating from my own ego and literally pushing that away. And like tapping into, call it higher consciousness or whatever, or meditative state or whatever.
So you could say that, but like, you know, even all that you could argue can be a result of still entirely physical, non-metaphysical, like action.
I don't know about that.
Like, you just know to do that in your mind, but like it's just because you have experienced things in this world that have taught you to do that. People that have never experienced it like can't do it, or like wouldn't know to do it, and therefore like they can never outlive their circumstance due to determinism.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is where it goes into
That's why it's an interesting question.
No, this is where it jumps into faith. Like, do you really believe that there are people out there who will just never ever be able to like awaken in the metaphysical sense? And
I don't know, but again, if you, the question is not can they awaken. The question is the awakening deterministic, as in, will they only awaken if the material reality lets them awaken? If
like
they happen to stumble upon that materialistic,
like if they're a chosen one or something.
No. I mean, like if they happen to be in the exact circumstances that let them experience that sort of thing that would lead to such a thing.
Well, to me, it's like for speaking personally, it's like it's hard for me to like really think of it in a less simplistic way, because to me it was a choice. It started with a choice. It wasn't anything else. It was always a choice. It wasn't like due to circumstance. Like I always got these kinds of experiences always as a direct result of my choice.
Right, but like you're still choosing in circumstance, right?
I wouldn't know. Like, what kind of choice is that? Like, when you say, like, I'm going to trust life. Like, when you say, like, I'm choosing to trust life. Like, what? Like, is that really bound by material circumstance? I think anyone could do that. I think anyone, no matter who they are, can choose not to do that. They could choose not to trust life and live in a constant state of, like, life has it out for me. The universe wants to get me. God hates me. Like, there's plenty of people who actively live like that. I'm choosing not to. I'm choosing the opposite. I'm choosing to say, I'm living in the light of the universe. I'm living in the light of God. I think the universe has my back. I think life has my back. I'm choosing to believe that.
What if you choose that and then you fucking die?
I'm okay with that, because honestly, like
how do you know? Like, how do you know actually has
faith? I have faith. I honestly just have faith. I honestly had this phenomenological experience, and I kind of felt it like sensationally, like physically. But at the end of the day, like I understand it's not something that I could like tangible that I could hold and show you and be like, look at this thing I found. I can never do that, and I get that. Like I understand that, but
you could lead the way. Obviously, you could say this is working for me.
This is why it's like I don't think it's what I'm supposed to do is sit there and convince people through conversation. I think what I'm really supposed to do is actually apply it to my day-to-day active like decisions, so it can manifest into like inspiring shit, like whether it's music I make or my accomplishments in martial arts or something, where people could look at it, and if they bother to, they could be like, how did you get there? And then I could tell them straight up, it's like, well, you better pull up a seat, because this is going to be a crazy ride. And they could hear it, and no matter how fantastical it sounds, at least I'll still have my actual accomplishments to look at and be like, see, this is what it turned into. This is what I made into it. It's not anything wacky. It's not anything crazy. It's something that anybody could like see some value in if they break it down to what it is. So it's like, this is why like I think I'm in a good place. I don't feel crazy. This is why I don't feel insane. This is why I don't feel like whacked out of my mind, because there's tangible things involved that I could point to that place a lot of order in shit, and that actually benefit me like tangibly. You know, like whether it's my emotional state, whether even if financially, you know, like I really do feel like, because it started with a positive emotional state, which allowed me to perform better and consistently, and then that allowed me to ask for shit with my job, and now I get more money. You know, it's like how do you argue against that? That's a tangible benefit that I believe like was literally the source.
The argument is not against that. The question.
No, I'm not saying you person. I'm saying like anybody. Like, how could anybody really argue against that at that point?
No,
it's like
the argument would not be that you can't do this. The argument would be that they can't do this.
No, my point is, no matter what you choose or choose not, like, don't look at exactly what I want. Don't be a copycat. Sure. But I'm saying, think about all the times where you wanted something, and when you got it, and when you didn't get it. You know, because like we all know what that feels like. We all know what it's like to want something, and we all know what it's like to get it and not get it. And it's like so it's like really it's all about isolating it and really taking advantage of the factors that said, all right, what about the times you got it? How did you get it? And the times you didn't get it, how did you not get it? You know, like.
Okay, well, here's a question for you then that I often run into.
Yeah.
How often have you wanted something, gotten it, and then been like, this isn't actually that good? Damn it. Like,
that's a good question.
Because that happens to me a lot.
You know what? That never happens to me with like material objects or like things I invest in, like money wise, but it happens with people. Like, you know, there's like, you know, like relationships. I'll be like, oh yeah, I want to be with this person. And then like I get into it and I'm like, oh fuck, I fucked up.
Interesting. Okay.
But when it comes to like things that I've made for myself and gotten for myself, like never. I've never really regretted a purchase. Like usually I've gotten something out of it that to me felt worth it. Like worth.
I don't know. I regret like 30% of my purchases, maybe. Well, no, regret's a strong word. Like, okay, like you can be unrealistic about what you expect from a product, like, but it still does the thing that it says on the box.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, okay, I can still use this. It's just not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I guess that's really what it comes down to, isn't it? Like, your expectations versus reality. Like, when you want something, you have an expectation of what it's going to give you. And then when you get it, if it doesn't live up to those expectations, that's when you're going to be disappointed.
Actually, you know what? I disagree. I think
Okay.
what the way it really works, it's like it's the reasons why you want something that determines your expectations. If you really wanted something for the reason, like a really specific reason, like you knew you had the exact vision of what you were going to do with this thing, which is why you don't just want it. You need it for something you're going to do.
Yeah, like, but that assumes your vision is accurate.
Well, no, it assumes that you have something that you're actually going to do with it, and not just having it for the fucking sake of having it.
Well, like, okay, like let's get more concrete, right? Let's say like you hypothetically want like a guitar. You're like, yeah, when I get this guitar, I'm gonna like be able to shred, and like I'm gonna be like fucking Mouse Team, and I'm gonna be like awesome. Then you get it, and you realize you're still like the same exact player that you were, and like like it's easier to play the guitar. But you're not magically like going to become a shredder. You
know what? I was going to list all these reasons why, like, just having a nice guitar would, all these other reasons why, like, even if you're not a great shredder, having all, like, why, like, having guitar like that would be great. But I realized you could only appreciate a guitar like that if you can actually play it anyway. Well, so it's like, maybe that in itself is like a self-defeating argument. Like, because like I'm like, well, if you have a nice guitar, you can appreciate the build quality and the history and all that shit.
You could easily,
and all that shit. But then again,
it's not gonna help you.
But if you fucking suck, it's like, all right, well, you're probably not gonna appreciate that anyway. Like,
no, you could. No, a lot of people like fetishize gear. Right, so they're like, "Yeah, this is a fantastic guitar."
Actually, you know what?
Check this out, and everyone's like, "Yeah, this is a fantastic guitar." It's like, "Okay, play something." They're like, "Ba ba 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 ba."
Oh wow, that's harsh. No, I mean, all right. So I don't think I fetishize gear, but I definitely fetishize relationships with gear. Like
what does that mean?
I fetishize having certain like intense experiences with gear.
I mean, those are real though. You could have that.
I guess, yeah.
Like I buy a lot of gear, and a lot of it does give me really great experiences. Like, it's very nice to like play with new technology and like new capabilities.
Because like if I see something, I'm like, I would love to use this to do this exact thing, and then I would do it with this exact thing. And I would just feel instant fulfillment. I'm like, wow, that feels great.
See, that's actually interesting, because usually when I get it, I don't have like a specific goal in mind.
No, I do. I always, like, everything I've gotten, I've had a specific use in mind.
I mean, okay, I have a general use. But, like, sometimes I don't even get that. I just get something else. But, like, I usually find it worthwhile. Like, even if it's not what I wanted, like, it's still, like, good and cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're like, whoa, this, like, does this. Like, and then you just play with it and you find, like, creative ways of, like, incorporating
it. Oh, well, that's another good part. It's like, yeah, whether or not you started with a specific vision for it or not, like, if it's a cool thing, then you can figure out other shit you can do with it. And you're like, whoa, this is cool. Yeah, that's how you get lucky, though. Like, you make a really lucky investment.
But that's, I mean, I don't know if that's luck or that's just an approach or that's, like, an attitude.
Or it's also another factor you could consider. Like, how much use can I get out of this thing? I don't know. Like, it's not like I don't think I spend my money on frivolous shit like jewelry or shoes or some shit. I think I like spend most of my money on like katanas and fucking music gear and fixing my car probably.
Well, that's a question of utility versus status, right?
I think for me, I like to find a balance of utility and status, form and function, basically.
Right, but I'm saying like you'd buy jewelry not because it does anything, but because it shows that you're like it's a fashion. Like gear can function that way too, right? Like you have a cool guitar, people are gonna be like, "Yo, you're fucking cool with that guitar."
Now I view jewelry,
but now you have to be good.
I mean, ever since I look at life through like metaphysical lens, like I put a lot more thought into aesthetics now. Like I see how aesthetics are actually really important. It really does have a direct effect on your immediate like experience in this reality, which is pretty much everything to you anyway. So it's like I totally get how like it's magic. It's a type of like just like how music is a form of like way to like it's magic. Just like same thing with aesthetics. Like it's visual influence. Like
well, yeah. I mean, looking good is very nice.
But also like I've been getting more into like
that's an interesting point. No, I like that.
Yeah, and also I've been also looking into like more symbolically like like metals, because I believe in like fucking vibrations and
I'd be
shit.
going there for a minute, but okay. That's fine.
I like gold. I think gold is sick. I think gold is just great to have on you. I think it feels good. I think it looks good. I think it's
I like gold.
It's also a super conductive metal. It's nice. It's cool.
Yeah, if you ever get shocked, they'll go right through it. Yeah, okay.
Also, like, if you were ever poor, no, not poor, but I'm like, if you're ever stranded somewhere, with like very limited resources and you needed something quick, gold is like, every country takes gold, like.
I guess.
Yeah, so it's like, I think, what's his name?
Okay, you could make the argument for the utility of gold, but I do feel like believing in metals.
Okay, so this is what I like. This is why I like gold. It's got a lot of utility. It's got monetary value. It aesthetically looks good, and spiritually, it also has like a lot of significant symbolic meaning.
Well, look,
so it covers like a lot of bases.
Well, hold on, I'm not arguing against gold.
I like gold.
I think there's a very good reason that gold is as commodified.
Because gold it's a cool fucking metal, man. It's just a cool, good metal.
Well, more than that.
And it's soft. Like it's.
Well, a big part of it is very non-reactive,
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, like, get messed up through elements.
And also, it's regal as fuck.
Yeah, but one of the big reasons for that is because it's not reactive.
Yes. It's not reactive.
And, like, stainless steel has that. Like, now we have all kinds of alloys that will last.
That just like stainless steel. Yeah, exactly.
But historically, like, gold was like the
rusted,
one thing
never oxidized. It was like god poop, like pretty much.
Yeah, it was like this thing stays consistent, and that's why it's useful as a currency.
Anyway, we could wrap this episode up. I gotta piss real bad, but anyways, thank you guys for listening to this rambly ass episode. I like
invest in gold, baby.
Yeah, I like gold.
Do it.
I'm buying gold.